Today we'll be taking a look at the new Marvel's Avengers game. I've left it a while mainly because I didn't get the game on release because I didn't feel like spending another 60-70 quid on another live service game. I think it's safe to say that we are all drowning in live service games. But also by now I think the launch period problems should be solved and fixed. The game is developed by DZGRIMX, makers of most of the Tomb Raider games. The game is pretty much a brawler game, but also a looter shooter, but also a single player adventure game. I feel as though the game is two games, the single player adventure, the reassemble campaign, and then we have the end game which is the live service portion. So let's take a look at Marvel's Avengers and see if it's just another Anthem, but owned by the Disney overlords. So I won't cover the story in too much detail to avoid spoiling it for those who'd like to play it for themselves, but the setup is you play as Kamala Khan, a hyped up young teen who fangirls the Avengers. Her story starts on A-Day where she meets some of the Avengers in some wholesome moments, the day goes wonderfully and everyone goes home. It of course goes tits up as we expect, and the Avengers are outlawed, their fancy new ship explodes and destroys most of San Francisco, turning those around into Inhumans. A group called AIM takes over, posing as a defense force against the Inhumans, and they are totally not up to something evil. Through your adventure, you'll play mainly as Kamala meeting the various Avengers, unlocking them to play. Each character has some sort of story arc they go through, aside from Thor. He doesn't really do much. The characters themselves are not designed to mimic the MCU versions, so if that's what you're expecting, then stop. I do enjoy all the characters and their voice actors. The only one I can see people maybe having a problem with is Iron Man being voiced by Nolan North. He's pretty much just Nathan Drake in fancy armour. Bruce Banner being voiced by Troy Baker makes some scenes with Kamala feel very Last of Us, but he does a really good job of playing a grumpy man. Overall, I did really enjoy the story. It's not the most original or best out there, but it was fun to play through. We have had some new updates, adding a new character and a new story segment focused on Hawkeye and Hawkeye's daughter Kate. The segment itself was surprisingly long and was enjoyable to play, and seems like it was setting up an interesting story. The character of Kate is pretty cool, if a bit overly I'm too cool and awesome. Just kind of a bit cringy at times. Gameplay wise, the game is a monster mash of different games. You've got slow walking segments taken from The Last of Us, super action set pieces like Uncharted, and picking up lots of colourful loot, like every game today. The main campaign itself, Avengers Reassemble, will see you play through a variety of missions, mainly playing as Kamala. You unlock the other heroes through story progression, so if a certain hero is your favourite, then you've got some playing to do. The main story missions are pretty much just introducing you to the various objectives you'll be completing in your time with the game. Sometimes you'll have a stealth segment where you sneak around, but that never appears again. While playing through the story, you'll unlock hub areas to accept daily tasks from factions, buy items from vendors, and just explore and talk to characters. Leveling in the main story seems really slow. Only once I'd finished the main campaign did I really start to gain levels. Once you finish the main story, you unlock the Avengers Initiative, the end game. The end game itself has some extra missions that build on characters, where you'll play through a couple of missions focused on that character. You unlock some of these through basic play, but also by completing challenges for that specific character. Your reward will just be some gear and a cosmetic outfit, which will be their outfit from the box cover, their classic outfit they call it. Through the end game you'll be leveling up your favourite hero or playing multiple, if you're feeling particularly spicy. Leveling up is split into two. You've got their main level, which levels up by the normal means of XP, completing missions and killing enemies for example. Through leveling this up you'll gain skills and skill points. The skill section itself is split into three. Primary, which has your combos and extra moves in. Speciality, which focuses on improving and changing how your abilities work. And Mastery, which is pretty much just the same as the last one. Other than your main level, you'll have a power level, which is just your gear score, gained by collecting more powerful gear. Gear throughout the leveling process is just something I never personally thought about for more than a second while I glanced at it. Some gear options come with perks like elemental effects and such, but through your leveling process you'll just be getting better gear all the time until max level, so there's no point really thinking about it. They make a big deal about it in the early game about choosing the correct gear for the job. For example, in a mission most enemies will be using cryo weapons, so choose gear that combats that, but even if you don't worry, you'll be fine. The only time the game gets truly challenging in any form is when you're undergeared or playing at a much higher difficulty. Most missions in the end game start off in an open world, either a city, a forest of some sort. If it's a character mission you may get extra lucky and there'll just be a storm going on. The open world area will include some side objectives, solve a puzzle to get a chest, kill a fancy enemy or save a prisoner. The objectives are pretty samey from area to area and all reward you with some form of gear. The most annoying part of these side objectives is if you're going for them, as you will, Jarvis will keep reminding you of your main mission, constantly. Once your objectives in the open world area is complete, you'll enter an aim base, and get ready for lots and lots of aim bases. They are incredibly similar in design and look, so if you don't like them, then you are out of luck for the time being. The main objective for the mission will be destroy 3 things, capture 3 things, or kill some enemies. Or if you're doing a villain sector, you'll be killing one of the bosses in the game. The game also has something called hive missions, which are basically the same as previous ones, but you just spend a lot more time here and clearing multiple floors of aim bases, and they tend to be a slight bit harder. The missions can get super repetitive, and it's one of the game's weakest areas. By the end of leveling up my first hero, by playing through all of these missions, I was getting tired of the aim bases. Enemies are also super samey. By the halfway point you've seen everything. I can see maybe with future updates and content, the enemies may change, but as it stands now, after the first content drop, we still have aim troops and robots. I did almost forget that the game does have a multiplayer component, and yeah, I didn't feel like I was missing much by not playing missions with other people, so you can have a good time solo or just grab a friend to play some missions with. There are certain areas in missions that require a certain character to access, but now with an update, if you're not using that character but have them with you as AI, you can ping the thing that you can't do and they will do it for you, so no need for humans. The combat in the game is a brawler, similar to Batman and Spider-Man type of combat, but with a hint of looter shooter abilities. You've got parries, dodges, stun building, finishes, perfect dodges, counters, an array of moves for each hero. The combat for one-on-one or small encounters is really fun, but once the fight gets big and a lot of enemies and allies get involved, it just gets really confusing with all the particles everywhere. You just can't tell what's going on. But I will say, clusterfuck fight or not, it's super fun to use these heroes. The only part of the heroes that I think is super underwhelming is their ultimate abilities. When I think ultimate attack, I think Destiny throwing hammers around nuking everyone, or Overwatch firing a giant dragon throughout the map. But in Avengers it's mostly just giving them a bit more damage. Thor and Hulk are an exception to this, Hulk giving everyone a big fat clap doing massive damage, and Thor turning himself into a sky missile. The visuals in the game are definitely some of the best at the end of this generation. Characters look awesome, the outdoor areas look great, and the many aim bases also look good. The frame rate on the other hand is a bit hit or miss. The game can be played on the new consoles, PS5 and Xbox Series something. It does not have a dedicated version or upgrade yet, it's just a patch. The upgrade I believe is coming later. For the new consoles there's a new high performance mode, which I'm not sure is on the older systems, but let me know if it is. I really doubt it though. But what it does is drop the quality from 4K to I guess not 4K, but it runs at a buttery smooth 60 frames a second, and only really drops when something completely wild is going on. On my old PS4 Pro the game did run at a steady 30 frames a second I think, and only when things got crazy did it drop, but it was only for a time, or it dropped whenever Thor was around. The sound itself is just okay, fighting things to me has always just sounded lacking. It's just a lot of thuds, nothing feels particularly impactful. Some sound effects like Iron Man's blaster and Thor's hammer do sound wonderful though. Now let's talk microtransactions for a second. The game does have a marketplace full of emotes, outfits, nameplates, takedowns,
Excuse me?
some costing a lot of money, depending on how you purchase the credit bundles. The game does contain a battle pass for each hero, which at the start I thought was okay. It was all free but incredibly slow to progress through, but hey, it was free so whatever. But with the new Kate update, her battle pass has paid content in it, which is really dumb. You have so many skins and crap filling up the marketplace, as well as the game being a full price game with multiple editions. Do you really have to siphon more money for an individual hero pass? The hero passes normally don't even contain that much good stuff either, but I'll still complain about it. You do earn credit credits, the premium currency, through progression of the main hero passes, so if you haven't spent any of that you could use that to buy new hero passes, but they could also just give it you for free, and just keep the microtransactions to the marketplace. Pass progression is also purely based on your daily and weekly challenges, which only have 4 challenges for each character, so just playing the game won't level it up unless you're going for the challenges. Overall, Marvel's Avengers has a really fun and enjoyable story campaign, with a fun new story segment added with the K update. The live service portion of the game, the end game, is where the game really seems to struggle, just mainly with variety. A lot of the same areas and same enemies make playing through it a boring slog at times, but the combat and using these various heroes do hold my interest enough to keep coming back. I don't get the impression, as a lot of people have had, that this was just a big cash grab. From the story to the characters to the animations, I can see that they genuinely wanted to make a great Avengers game, but it just got bogged down with making it a live service game, which unfortunately just brings it down. I wouldn't recommend the game at full price. I got mine for about $30 and I feel as though I got my money's worth, so wait for a sale or price drop if it hasn't dropped already. The game is set to get new characters and story updates as time goes on, but plans can quickly change and die for these live service games. So thank you for watching and I will see you next time.